It says I'm live, so I'm going to assume I am. Yes. And we're live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another PMQ's response stream or reaction, I guess, because I've only watched it once. I listened to it a second time, and I'll be honest, I wasn't really paying attention. I do apologise. But it's because the questions are very much of a similar format and very obsessed over one detail that I didn't get too bogged down, if that makes sense. So before we even start, hello Jason Woods, Karma and Cyrene, Yorkshire Tom as well, Globus Hystericus. I like that names are popping up as I'm reading them, although I'm sure the delay is quite something. Hope you've all had a fantastic Wednesday. As I got most of my projects done for this week, I'm ahead of schedule, which is quite something. So I will make it a point over the weekend to repeat, because this is quite refreshing. Hello Discanar. So yes, PMQs. Okay. Nice. Obligatory yawn in the wrong stream. My apologies. Usually that happens when I play video games. Yeah, because I'm exciting. I'm seriously thinking about streaming Train Simulator. Hello, Mazzy May. So, PMQs is going to be centered around test and trace, furlough, and, well, basically it's just coronavirus. Brexit doesn't get a mention. And yet, in less than 4 weeks, a deal has to be agreed upon. Or is it 4 now? I think it's just 4 weeks. Which is quite worrying, to be honest. Yes. Hello, Zaus. Yes. Or Chaos. I don't know how you pronounce it. I do apologise. I am live. Good. So, I have skipped it to 18 minutes 11. Oh no, around the 18:11 mark, because this is when PMQ starts. The video is 18 minutes of trash at the start. My apologies. So, let's get into this. Oi. I clicked. Did I double click you? Boomer.
We're now going to move on to Prime Minister's questions.
How exciting. That is Chaos.
Now I know why you've been in Lincolnshire. Right, let us start with question 1. Jamie Stone to the Prime Minister.
Number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Jamie Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Clearly, the unanimous decision by Highland Council planning to grant consent for the UK's vertical space takeoff in Sutherland is extremely good news. I hope that the Prime Minister agrees with me that this would be extremely good for the local economy of the Highlands, but also would provide a huge opportunity for the UK economy in terms of the international satellite market.
Yeah, so the biggest issue I used to have was echo on my end. Like donation alerts did that a lot, or do that a lot. Without so many people in the chamber, the echo is quite obvious. Then again, nearly 660 people would pack into this room, 650 of those being MPs, the rest being security, speaker, clerks, master at arms. There are others, but yeah. I reckon they should fill fill the seats with loo roll. Yeah. Loo roll. Yeah.
Prime Minister.
I absolutely. I congratulate Launch UK on what they are doing, and as he rightly says, it will create 250 full-time jobs, 130 at the facility in Forres, and I'm no doubt launch the UK on a path to ever greater presence in the global satellite market.
Lee Rowley.
Hello, Yoshi Rabbit, and thank you for clarifying it is because of the acoustics. In the original chambers, it was a bit different because obviously it was smaller, less MPs. But they did relocate and they did do this, and it's a good idea. It works. But now they have microphones, I think they should change. I think they should have a virtual WWE audience, because I'd like to see how many people turn up with the Chris Benoit on the screen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday evening, the Prime Minister announced
And that, yes, I do want Titantron intro music for all the people that enter the chamber.
a series of changes that none of us ever wanted to see to keep the virus as low as possible, and residents are understandably concerned and anxious. Would the Prime Minister reassure us all and my constituents in North East Derbyshire that the primary focus of the government remains on protecting both lives and, just as importantly, livelihoods?
So I discussed this earlier today on this channel. The new rules are strict and they come with heavy punishment. I'm not in favour of a lot of them, to be honest, but I do understand why, because, and I've got a source, well, I haven't got it up for you guys, where is it? 6,178 cases, which is a growth of 37% in just a week. The cases are almost as high as they were at their original peak back in April. That is, and by the way, just to give it a bit more context, the gap between the infection rate from a couple days ago, it's over 2,000. It's 37%. It actually is. It's astonishing. The only thing that really is weird is the death number. It's still really, really low. The 23rd of September so far is 37. So something is going on here. It's a bit strange. But yeah, it's interesting. I haven't gotten to a video earlier, just woke up. Oh, well, I hope you enjoy it later then. Yeah, and I do agree, creative way to get more interested in politics. And Darth Vader's background music will get so boring, but if they can add a little glass shatter here and there, some pyrotechnics, you're golden. Hello, Leona. The entire Parliament building is slowly engulfed in shadows.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Speaker. My honourable friend can certainly reassure his constituents that our purpose and the purpose of the package that
social distancing and
carried overwhelming support yesterday in this House is to continue to drive down that R number whilst keeping businesses open and keeping pupils in school.
Now comes the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Oh, this is going to be fun. Keir Starmer this evening did his own address to the nation. It was interesting.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 3 months ago today, the Prime Minister said, test and trace can be a real game changer for us. He was backed up by the Health Secretary, who said, finding where people who test positive are is the single most important thing that we can do to stop the spread of the virus. Yesterday, the Prime Minister said the complete opposite. Standing there, he said testing and tracing has very little or nothing to do with the spread or transmission of the disease.
You don't suppose it's because times changed and so do opinions, right? When more information comes out, do you, Keir?
Both positions cannot be right. Which one is it, Prime Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it is an obvious fact of biology and epidemiology that, alas, this disease is transmitted by human contact or aerosol contact, but it is one of the great advantages of NHS test and trace, which we did not have working, alas, earlier in the pandemic. We simply didn't have it in the spring, and it is the result is that we now have the ability to see in granular detail where the epidemic is breaking out, exactly which groups are being infected. That's why we've been able to deliver.
So there were a lot of errors that took place with track and trace. In my gym, you have to have the NHS app on your phone to scan a QR code to register there and all this nonsense for track and trace. Problem with that is, and I installed the NHS app to do this, you have to confirm your identity. To do that, you require a driver's license or a passport. I have neither. Which means tomorrow I have the distinct pleasure of having to fill out some poxy form. Frustrating. But it did take them a while to get into a position where it can start to work, but there have been mistakes. A lot of mistakes. And while I can accept we all have to learn from them and, you know, pick ourselves up and try and improve after making it, the fact you never admitted to any of them is interesting. It is a hindsight, Captain Hindsight moment, Cyrene. You're absolutely right. Dun dun dun.
Deliver the local lockdowns, and that's why we're able to tell now at this stage that it is necessary to take the decisive action that we are, and which I think he supports, or he did yesterday anyway, to drive the virus down, keep kids in school and keep our economy moving. That's the point, Mr. Speaker.
A point to make. Boris did not answer the question. That's one.
Starmer.
So why yesterday did the Prime Minister say that testing and tracing had very little or nothing to do with the spread or transmission of the disease?
Mr. Speaker, I hesitate to reprove the right honourable gentleman for a flaw he seems sometimes to fall into is not listening to my previous answer.
It's a very Jeremy Corbyn thing, but I think he did. But you didn't give him. I mean, you gave him an answer, but sadly, you led him on to the next one because, yesterday you contradicted yourself, which many people pointed out.
Mr. Speaker, I gave a very clear answer. The answer is it is a simple and sadly it is an epidemiological fact that transmission of the virus takes place by a human contact from person to person. What Test and Trace enables us to do is to isolate the cases of the virus in ever greater detail, which we weren't able to do before.
That's it, control the population.
Tinfoil hat time. Many thousands of people, trainees, nurses, doctors, young people, members of the armed services. We're not only testing more capacity, testing more than any other country in Europe, but capacity today is at a record high. And I think you should pay tribute to their work.
I don't really care if anyone wants to stand up and give some good old-fashioned virtue. I just don't care. That's two, by the way.
Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, I listened to the answer that the Prime Minister gave to the questions. That's why I asked him the question, because yesterday he said the complete opposite of what he said today. Everybody who was in the chamber, everybody who reads Hansard will see it. And he talks...
I read the Hansard. He did actually say that.
He talks about testing. Mr. Speaker, can I remind the Prime Minister that last week, before the Liaison Committee, he admitted testing currently has huge problems. Dido Harding said, we plainly don't have enough testing capacity. The Health Secretary said, fixing testing would take weeks. Pretending there isn't a problem is part of the problem, Prime Minister.
I do think he has a point, but I can also understand the position of the government in that they don't want to scare the living shit out of people who've already started panic buying all the fucking loo roll. That's not even a joke. People have done it. I don't know what you're doing. My sisters had to be very quick about this and make sure there was at least some here for my nieces who seem to use far too much of it. They need help. It's just... And with shops as well, there's the issue of people booking up all the delivery slots. It's just absolute trash. But I can understand both positions on this of if you're going to cock up or you need help, ask for it. If you're going to cock up, own up to it. But I would point out, as the Labour Party are paid $10 million a year to be the opposition, because that's what they get paid by the taxpayer to be opposition. Hello, Socky. There is the obvious issue that even if he admitted to it, Boris that is, Keir wouldn't be willing to work. He would then say, you failed the people, and now I'm going to hammer you for that. He finds a hole, he pokes it with his cock, and then sees what happens next.
It's unclear, and let's test what the Prime Minister's explanation is. Is the explanation for the problems that we haven't got enough capacity? It says which problem? The problem that he acknowledged 1 week ago before the Liaison Committee. Mr. Speaker, is the explanation from the Prime Minister that we haven't got enough capacity because nobody could have expected the rise in demand? That's the Dido Harding defence.
Yeah, that was bull.
Or is it, we've got all the capacity we need, it's just that people are being unreasonable in asking for tests? That's the Hancock defence. So which
Yeah, they're going to make great scapegoats when this is all over.
is it?
Right, now I fully expect Boris is now going to flex about how good our testing capacity is and how he's going to push it. Because you've set him up for that, and Boris doesn't take you seriously yet, because it's not election season.
Mr. Speaker, I must say I think that the continual attacks by the opposition on Dido Harding in particular are unseemly and unjustified.
You don't suppose it's because somebody with the literal qualifications of a dead mouse in such a high office position, the wrong kind of dead mouse, I might add, is one of those main reasons people have been quite heavy on Dido Harding, right? Hello, honest person, by the way. I hope you're well. Are people going to wake up before the flu season starts? Don't know. Kids are already back in school and they've got the equivalent of freshers' flu. My nieces had it. It's quite funny. It only lasted a couple days because that's all it ever does. But people worry and they're like, but now you've got symptoms of COVID. You must lock yourself away for 2 weeks. No, I don't think I will. Shut up.
And I think that her teams have done an outstanding job in recruiting people from a standing start. This is not for a moment to deny the anxiety of those who want tests, which I readily accept. Of course, we would love to have much more testing instantly, and it is thanks to the efforts of NHS Test and Trace that we are not only at a record high today, testing more people than any other European country, but to get to the point that he raised, Mr. Speaker, we're going to go up to 500,000
there's
tests
the flex.
by the end of October.
There's the flex.
That is the work of Dido Harding and her team, and I think actually, again, you know, what we want to hear, and what I frankly want to hear, is more of the spirit of togetherness that we had yesterday, Mr. Speaker, because this is...
If you have spirit of togetherness all the time, you're just guaranteeing re-election.
This is an opportunity to support NHS Test and Trace. This is an opportunity to get
Only if it works.
behind that scheme, to encourage people to believe in it and in its efficacy. Instead, he constantly knocks it from the sidelines, Mr.
Well, I'll give him some credit here. He was knocking it when it wasn't working. That was the point. He's not constantly knocking the NHS. He is knocking something that wasn't working because you got it wrong.
Speaker.
And this, oh, sorry, I think the whip. I'll just say to the whip, there's a little bit of rowdiness coming from here, also from your good self, which I normally never have from you, and we're having a little bit from this side. I want to be able to hear the Prime Minister. When I can't hear the Prime Minister, I do worry about the people who are watching proceedings. If we have further comment, please do so. Speak to me afterwards. Right, where are we up to? Keir Starmer.
That's so polite. Why can't we have a good old-fashioned, John Burko's order? But in a, short man angry voice.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister knows my complaint is not with the NHS, it's with the government.
Legitimately, that is the legitimate position to have. Because the NHS have done everything they could do within the confines of what they had.
My wife works for the NHS. My mother worked for the NHS. My sister works for the NHS. So I'm not going to take lectures from the Prime Minister on supporting the NHS.
Just because your family are involved in the NHS doesn't mean you're not supporting the NHS. I just want to say that. It just means you have family that work or have worked for the NHS. Just gonna put it like, yeah.
The Prime Minister says we've got capacity, goes on and on about capacity. Let's test that. 3 weeks ago, millions of children went back to school. That's a good thing. Then the inevitable happened. Kids get coughs, bugs, flu. That's what happens. It's
Freshers' flu, yeah.
But there's no effective system in place to deal with it.
Yeah, there is. Make them go back to school and continue to go back to school because, seriously, nobody likes them and we want them somewhere where we can herd them and force feed them education and really bad meals. And when I say really bad meals, what I mean is cuisine compared to what they get at home.
Many can't get tests quickly. Schools are allocated only 10 tests. Many wait days for the results. The outcome is obvious. Child and siblings off school, mum, dad or carer off work, and in some cases all year groups off school. How on earth did we get into this mess?
Prime Minister.
Come on, Mr. Speaker. He knows perfectly well that, and he'll have read the advice from the 4 chief medical officers that there's an exceptionally small risk to children of primary and secondary school age from this disease. He knows that children have a significantly lower rate of infection. That's all in the letter that they've published today. But he also knows that we are doing our level best to get every child a test who has symptoms. And
to be honest, if you've seen the symptom list for the most common ailments, apparently everything's coronavirus at this point.
further, that thanks to the efforts of teachers in this country, of parents, pupils, 99.9% of our schools are now back. And in spite of all his attempts, I may say, throughout the summer, to sow doubt on the idea that schools were safe. The people of this country had more common sense, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Dan.
Did you mean Patriarch of the Sith? Hello, by the way. The man who was sat on the chair, the big throne in the middle there? Or do you mean the guy in the blue suit who's now standing up? If you mean the man in the chair, he's the Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle. If you mean the guy standing up in the blue suit, leader of the Labour Party and the opposition, Sir Keir Starmer. By the way, I've never, prior to him, heard of the name Keir. It's a weird one.
Such a poor defence. That's such a poor defence. The point isn't whether the children have got COVID. It's that they've got COVID symptoms, and then they're off school. The government's own department shows that 1 in 8 children are off school this week. That disrupts their education. Whether it's COVID symptoms or other symptoms is nothing to the point. If the Prime Minister doesn't see that, he's really out of touch with families and what they're going through in schooling day in, day out in the last few weeks. The reality is, losing control of testing.
Yeah, I agree. Boarding schools, and Jesse's right. They live with adults. Send them all away. That's what I say. I say we dump them on an island akin to Lord of the Flies and see what happens. Yep. There are absolutely no more Corona Chan jokes to be told, Saki. You're absolutely right. It's disgusting.
Is a major reason why the Prime Minister is losing control of this virus. As a result, he's phasing in health measures, restrictions which we do support. But at the same time, he's phasing out economic support. Health measures and economic measures are now dangerously out of sync. Let me quote the Director General of the CBI. There can be no avoiding the crushing blow new measures will bring for thousands of firms. It's vital, she says, that all announcements of restrictions go hand in hand with clarity on the business support to protect jobs. Why wasn't that announced yesterday?
So, a big argument is that furlough needs to be extended, as would any other scheme that helps people with work. The job retention scheme is one of them, where companies are paid up to $1,000, I believe, per employee that they keep on once furlough ends, but it's at the end of the year, I believe they pay that. Whereas furlough ends at the end of October. I should say, for the sake of it, I am self-employed. I receive no payments beyond the self-employment income support scheme grants that I got. I got 2 of those. Furlough got a lot more. They get a feckload more than what I get. And when it ends, yes, there's a problem, especially if the government is encouraging you to work from home. It's not always possible for many, but it is for some. It's for some, not all. So it's and the government don't want to do this. They don't want to extend furlough because to extend furlough would mean to borrow more money. They want to borrow money, of course they do, but they want to spend it on things that make them look good, like building housing in areas where I really wish they wouldn't build houses. But they have limited options. We are a tiny island. So there is the issue here and there of extending something they don't want to extend. They also don't want to put us back into lockdown, because that guarantees that they have to borrow hundreds of billions. The unemployment rate will go... Yeah, it will go through the roof. No, they haven't, sadly, Saki. Their scientific papers with solid research are pretty much written on the back of a Poundland gift bog roll. And I mean the stuff that you actually can get a pound loo roll, one roll, and it's all written on the back of that sandpaper.
Mr. Speaker, let's be in absolutely no doubt that the work that this government has done to protect the economy of this country, to support the jobs of 12 million people through the furlough scheme, an overall expenditure of about £160 billion, has been unexampled anywhere else in the world.
So, honest person, that's actually a point. If people, one of the reasons Keir actually has a fair few points here and why Boris has failed to answer a lot of the questions is because of a lack of transparency. That lack of transparency has gotten us to the point where, well, we're kind of stuck here listening to someone tell us things, but not tell us all the things. And a lot of people in this kind of day and age, they want to know everything. They don't want to know half the facts, they want all the facts. Which is why this is a tad tragic.
And I think he should pay tribute to the Chancellor and his work. And we will go forward with further creative and imaginative schemes to keep our economy moving. And that is the essence, Mr. Speaker, of the plan, of the proposals that he talks about. He supported them last night, or he supported them yesterday, Mr. Speaker. I hope he continues to support them. The essence of what we're saying, Mr. Speaker, is that we want to depress the virus, but keep people...
If you want to depress it, go and... no, not making that joke. I'll get flayed.
...in school and keep our economy moving. And that is the single best thing we can do to support firms across the country.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not asking about the support that was being put in place in the past. We support that. I'm asking about the support that's needed now, particularly in light of the restrictions announced yesterday. Mr. Speaker, this is not theoretical. Yesterday, 6,000 jobs were lost at Whitbread, one of the major employers in the hospitality sector. The CBI, the TUC and trade unions, the Federation of Small Businesses, the British Chamber of Commerce, the Governor of the Bank of England, they're all calling on the Prime Minister to stop and rethink. Support the businesses affected. Don't withdraw furlough. We've been saying it for months. When is the Prime Minister finally going to act?
They're not going to if they can avoid it, they will. It's why they haven't imposed a full-on lockdown, because that way they don't have to impose, introduce a carry-on for that scheme. They have to try and grow the economy. There's a horrible balance here with health and wealth, and either way. If the government favours the health, then the national wealth takes a hit, and we will struggle. Fact. If he favours wealth, then people are just going to be like, you're coddling up to your conservative buddies, aren't you? Yeah, sort of posh twats. Does anyone want to mention Sweden? No. Yeah, I'm glad of doing more of these. It's just the issue I've got. The issue I've got is that this is it. It's just like a couple dozen people in a room. It's so... shite. It really is. I want to see all the banter, and we're getting none of it.
Well, Mr. Speaker, these are indeed tough times, and I have no doubt that many businesses, many employees are feeling a great deal of anxiety and uncertainty, and we will do our level best to protect them throughout this period. But we will get through this, Mr. Speaker, by precisely the methods that we have outlined and that were agreed upon in this House yesterday. And I may say, I think that what the reality of the opposition position has been exposed. The cat's out of the bag, Mr. Speaker, because it was his shadow education secretary who said of the present crisis, she said, "Don't let a good crisis go to waste." That's the real approach of the Labour Party, Mr. Speaker, seeking to create political opportunity out of a crisis, out of the difficulties and dangers this country is going through, whilst we are taking the tough decisions. The tough decisions to get this virus down, Mr. Speaker, to keep our education system going and to keep our economy moving. He supported it yesterday. I hope he will, in a spirit of togetherness and unity, that he will continue to give it his support.
Boris loves Chachi.
Mr. Speaker, our local football...
Blah, blah, blah. Paper pervert. Let's go. Right. Where are you, Blackford? There you are. Protect your reams. The pervert has arrived.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Last night, the Prime Minister and leaders of the devolved governments announced restrictions aimed at stopping the number of COVID cases reaching a predicted 50,000 a day by mid-October. But there are other major threats that we face this October. There's another set of numbers, and all of this is of the Tory government's own making. 1 million jobs at risk if furlough ends early. 30 billion a year bill to the taxpayer from a no-deal Brexit. And today we learn 7,000 trucks queuing for days.
The truck thing is one of interest to me because I live near there, and it's an absolute ball ache. Honestly, it really is. I'm going to save it for Friday, though, I promise you that. Yes. Karma does love to kill penguins, by the way, everyone. Shame her in the chat for that. No politician ever took advantage of a crisis for political gain. Sarcasm here.
At Dover. Mr. Speaker, if those numbers become a reality,
touch that paper,
the
boy.
Prime Minister is leading us into another winter of discontent. Mr. Speaker, our First Minister has shown leadership at all fronts during this pandemic. However, the responsibility and powers for extending the furlough scheme lie with the Prime Minister and the Chancellor. The Prime Minister must announce an immediate extension, no half measures, no half-baked projects to this vital and life-saving scheme, while the Prime Minister show leadership required and save the jobs.
I think there's two perspectives to this. The first one is that furlough will save these jobs for longer, right? The government's position is we've got to keep the economy going so people are working, which saves the economy and keeps them in jobs. Both could be correct, but I don't want to get to a stage where people are living on benefits and are just okay with that by being, furloughed. No business will. I mean, okay. So best example I can think of is my local gym. The owner of it, I spoke with her. She's admitted that they barely got out of the first lockdown because they lost so many members. They lost so many. And yes, they got a grant from the government, but it's not enough. And if it happens again, they're done. It's over. And that will annoy me because it took a lot for me to go to a gym. And I'm thinking to myself because I'm a selfish person. But it's one of those very difficult positions they're in. And I really feel for them. And I know what Boris is going to say. He's going to mention the Barnett consequentials and blah, 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 blah. Which is why we're going to go back here. Because I don't care enough. I know what he's going to talk about the Barnett formula, the consequentials, and additional money that's going to go to governments, and trying to get more people to stay in work, and blah, blah, blah. It's not. This is why I kind of partially stopped doing these. Because coronavirus has killed Parliament as the more entertaining aspect. Because this could be really entertaining. It really could be. Because okay, so this is where it's an obvious one. We haven't seen Keir Starmer handle, chuntering. He hasn't handled the banter and the back and forth. But Boris is a bit of a showman. And you know that. And that makes this more interesting. Who's going to buy up the real estate after businesses go bust? I'm not sure. People with spare time will party. That's a problem. It is. It really is. And you mentioned chaos. Who would benefit from the deferred cost of extended furlough? I don't know what that is. What happened there? I don't know what that is. My apologies. I see nothing. Okay. I don't know who would benefit from it, actually. Yeah, I really don't. So, since this was a lot quicker than expected, I do apologise. But I can't really add much to this. It was a bit... Well, it was 6 questions and Boris didn't answer a single one, really. He flexed a little, gesticulated a bit, but no, it didn't work. Oh well. My apologies. It's not longer. But I am trying to get back into the swing of this. And if I can find a way to make this more entertaining, I promise I'll try. Maybe I'll get a soundboard or something, right? And Chaos, that's actually brilliant. That's my point. That's actually quite clever. Yeah. Lockdowns only cause the disease to slowly spread to everybody over a long period of time, where less severe lockdown restrictions nets the same number of people who over less time, but it's everywhere. Yeah. The death rate's pretty low at the moment as well, so I'm not entirely sure how this is going to continue if the death rate stays quite low. Eat more in the chair. The chair is already suffering, I'm just saying. My apologies for the creaking. I'm going to disappear because I have to go and do one other thing this evening. Two things, but yeah. Thank you very much for joining. And I will see you here on Friday with Trups LP, hopefully. Not sure yet. Needs to have a word. Don't know if he's about. Yes. Anyway, where is the stream thing? That's not it. That's not it either. Damn it! Boomer moment. Good night, everyone.